Hey guys, Chris here, and of course Mr. Ben Burns is back. He's not dead in a ditch somewhere. He's been super busy running the company and of course doing a lot of client work.
That's right.
Right, so on this episode I just wanted to do a check-in status progress report, if you will. So stick around for that.
So you said you wanted to talk about like the recent calls.
Yeah.
Do you have
I do.
questions for me?
I do.
Okay. I don't want to like guide the ship.
No, totally. I appreciate you coming on the show, talking about this stuff. I hope it wasn't too difficult for you. The thing that I want to tell you is this, and one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is I do feel the pressure that you must feel. I see it on your face. You know, like you want to do well, you want to play in the big leagues, and you're trying to overcome all these kinds of things. But just for you to relax and know that I see that already, that I know that you don't have to be anybody other than who you are around me.
No, I know. I just, you know, I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Anything
and I want
to prove to me or anybody else here.
Get it.
Okay, that pressure, it's only going to take you out of your most winning mindset, and your increase in stress level is not going to allow you to perform. Every call we do, I have a little post-mortem with you and the guys, and I tell you guys this is how you're supposed to do it. You read this, I read that, and we're constantly comparing. And I was hoping that through the last, I would say 3 to 4 calls. It hasn't been that many calls, but in the last 2 weeks we've been on seemingly a lot of calls, and you're seeing me firsthand deal with the issues coming in and how I manage the energy in the room. What have you learned from that?
I have learned to be more afraid of you.
Why would you be more afraid of me?
Just, I mean, you're good,
that
man.
Was a little unexpected.
You're good.
Let me just write that down.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Yeah, you're just really smooth on the phone, and that's something that I attain, and something that I'm trying to figure out is, you know, if I try to be you, because I've done that, right? I mean, you look at my YouTube channel and it's like, let me try to be Chris Do right now, and it's like I can't do it. You know, I'm not as smooth and quick, and so I'm trying to figure out how I can, what I bring to the table there, and how I can approach those and get the same results. Without being Mr. Do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Something I have learned though is going into a call, especially with a team, having those roles and responsibilities outlined beforehand is huge.
That's excellent.
It's huge.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Everybody that's on the call, the way you can look at this is we're on a boat and you have to earn your weight, otherwise get off the boat. So having clear roles and responsibilities. When they talk about production budget, it's going to be Scott. When they talk about like how are we going to direct and frame the shot, that should be Greg. When they talk about how we're going to do the digital or anything specific to the bid, that's Ben Burns' area. And the rest of it, just in this one case, is me. I'm the smoother. What would you call me?
Just, I mean, you handle objections.
Okay,
that's what you
I'm
really
the objection handler.
Yeah, the embrace and pivot maneuver. I mean, we've talked about it a ton on this channel, but that the way that you can take and handle objections live on the call is great.
Okay, so let's spend a little time on talking about how to do that.
Okay.
Okay, the way I look at it is I'm just managing energy. When I hear something that is a negative energy, I need to then take that and spin around and turn it into positive energy as quickly as I can. Not in a snake oil salesman kind of way, not in I'll talk your ear off in a way, but just to manage energy. So it's like just being with the flow, okay? Now, I'm gonna ask you this question, I'm gonna tell you what I do, and then you tell me how you feel about it.
Okay.
And we're gonna stay on this particular area here, is this. Does it surprise you how little I prep for the calls? And how few notes I take, or what it is that I'm doing physically or intellectually in preparation for the call?
Yeah, it does surprise me. Before the call the other day, I think you were flipping through a magazine and then you doodled on the back of the magazine, and that was your prep. Meanwhile, I've got like 40 PSDs up. I got like going through Keynote and like got lines and objections lined out in my notebook. Like, I think that's just me. I mean, I'm a preparer. I'm a prepper. But yeah, it does surprise me. But I think the strength in that though is that you're just like open. You're just completely open to what's next. And when the call starts, all that stops. You're just completely zoned in. It's like a Zen moment. And so that's something that I can strive for, just to be completely present. Because there's a lot of thoughts that go through my head through that call. Like, is what I'm saying making sense? It's the same thing as being on camera, you know?
Yeah.
It's like those thoughts get in the way of me saying what I need to say.
Right. Because you're thinking about what the camera is recording and how this is going to appear later, that you just can't be here.
Right.
So let's assume like you're like a level 9 intellect or something. You're as smart as Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four,
sure, or
Tony Stark from Iron Man. Let's just say. It's possible then that you can think about the camera and how to control the shoot and what it's going to look like depending on what you say, and also be present. But most of us, me included, it's just hard enough just to be here and be here right now.
Yeah.
So something that I'm practicing is just to block everything else out. Like, reduce your field of vision so that it's contracted around you. I don't really care at this point now what's going to get edited, what's going to go out there, because I trust the people who are going to do the work and put it together, not to make us look bad.
Right.
I know that. So now I'm just going to be there. So on the call, and I'll say this, probably the first year and a half, 2 years on calls, and I did a lot of calls, I was a nervous wreck. Had scripts, questions, all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that there's a shortcut.
Right.
There isn't, but there's a thing that you work towards, that you trust the training and experience that you've had, trust the preparation, and you trust in the faith that the other people are good people too, that we're all just trying to do business, potentially, maybe not together, but we're all just trying to move about in the world, that it's okay for it not to work out.
Yeah, and the other thing is whenever you talk about leads and stuff, it's never adversarial. So it's never like an us versus them, like what's he trying to do with. There's a lot of that, like how can I win this? How can I get around and
get the one level up or upper hand?
And you never talk about leads like that, and that's really inspiring because it is. These people want their business to succeed, and we'd like their business to succeed, and just being there and in that same having the same motivation is a powerful thing.
So I'm going to give you guys something to work towards. You guys, I want you to practice being in the room with another person and just trying to figure out what they want. Forget about what you want, what you need to look like, how you want to impress them or anything like that. Just try to ascertain what is it they want. Do they have a question that they want to ask you? Do they need a cup of water because they're thirsty? Just be tuned into their energy and what their needs and wants are, because that's what I'm doing on the call. I'm blocking out the rest of it. So when a client asks a question, I'm hearing it with fresh ears for the first time. Okay? We were joking about this the other day when the client asked us one question, and everybody started like spewing out answers to things that they're all prepared for.
Yeah.
I have no prepared answer, so I'm listening, and it's like, I think you just want to hear a yes or a no, or it's 14. That's all they wanted to know. And we're just feeling like that anxious energy, and we're spewing out everything, and I just like, what are we talking about? Time out, guys, time out.
Well, the other thing is Matthew does this really well. If a client asks a loaded question or a shotgun question, my approach is to answer the whole question,
right?
Even if there's like 8 questions inside of that one question,
right?
But what Matthew does and what you do is you either take it apart and lay out all the questions and ask them which one should I answer, or you just answer the one that you think means more.
Right.
That's something that I really want to work on.
All right, let me teach you guys this one thing, okay? I refer to it as unpacking. I want to unpack the question because it's loaded. It's loaded with lots of different things. So if somebody gave me a plate of food and it's something that's already been cooked and prepared and lots of different ingredients, like, tell me if you like this. And then I had to then say, do you want me to talk about the texture, the mouthfeel? Is it the flavor? Is it, what is the criteria you're looking at? And I need to then take this thing apart. So the potatoes were cooked really well. I think it was a little bit over seasoned, and I can taste a little basil, and I like that because that's an unexpected hit. or you've infused this flavor into the dish, and I love that part. So what we want to do is we want to unpack it, and unpack it in front of the client. Say, I heard 4 questions there. Let me repeat it back to you.
Right.
Okay, now the client feels validated. I learned this from my therapist. She's like, when you say it back to them, they feel very important and that they felt heard, and that's really important for people.
Right.
Because if you don't validate it, they're going to keep repeating it, and they're going to keep thinking, did he or she hear my concern? Were you listening to me? And that's going to change the energy to negative.
Right.
So I'm going to unpack it. I'm going to say it back to you. And sometimes in unpacking it, I try to say it in the way that's most clear. And they say, whoa, yes, that is what I said, but you said it better than I said it. And that's a good sign.
And it also gives you space to think, which is another thing that we talk about.
Right.
Yeah.
So you unpack it, and then you say, which one's important to you? They say, all, go one at a time. None of those. Actually, the bigger question is this. Then answer that. That's technique number 1. Technique number 2 is what politicians do.
Yeah.
Which is no matter what question you ask me, I will start talking, and by the end of it, I'll answer the question I imagined, and I use that. I'm not a fan of that, because people walk away. Smart people say, you never answered the question, and you're trying to manipulate me. But that is also another technique. I prefer unpack, pick the question that's most important that you think is the truth of what they want to have resolved, and work with that. A lot of times you guys will hear me say this, or you'll see a tweet that I put out, and the thing I believe in is showing up empty. I don't mean show up empty like you're an idiot, you don't know anything, you haven't looked into anything, you haven't done the bare minimum level of work. That's just out of laziness. What I'm talking about is you have prepared, you have looked through the brief, and you've looked at whatever materials the clients have sent you, and then you go into the room and you purge all that so they're just wholly present to what's going on. The emptiness that I'm talking about is getting rid of what your expectations are, any kind of attachment, any kind of bad energy. If you got in a fight with somebody before, get rid of that. Stop thinking about having to pay the bills, or whether or not this is going to be a good job, or the client that's going to call you next. You got to get rid of all that stuff. That's what I'm talking about, because I almost like to play this game. The game I like to play is who in the room with me is actually listening to the client. And I can tell by the answers that you give to the client. So when they ask you, what's your favorite color? And you start talking about numbers and the schedule, and they're like, what's your favorite color? And then you give them 4 favorite colors, like, what is your favorite color? The only answer I can give is, I don't have one, or it's black or red or whatever it is. And that's the best that I can do. Okay, so we can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, Ben? Anything else you can pick apart in terms of things that you possibly can do, not in my way, but in your way? A technique, an approach, a mindset change, something like that.
Well, we touched on it a little bit, but we didn't dig in.
Okay.
Giving yourself space to think about your answer. And if you have a team like we do, it's amazing when somebody else chimes in when a difficult question is asked, to kind of give that person a little bit of room to put together the right answer in his head. One thing I noticed is that you can do this by simply just taking a pause, because the pauses are not nearly as long in the real world as they feel in your head.
Yeah.
And so just taking a minute to think, or just saying, that's a great question, let me think about that, and then coming out with an answer, that's a world of time in my head. But in the real world, it's probably just a normal pace of a conversation.
What have you learned so far in kind of watching how we pitch or how we handle the client calls? Anything surprise you? Maybe, I know what a lot of people are out there thinking. I'm going to just say this. I think they're looking at me saying stuff and saying, that is not real. This guy does not know what he's talking about. And how do I know this? Because they make those comments. They're like, this is BS. This is a total scam. It's all unreal. And I can see that, because they're not on this side. And so many people have asked, like, I wonder what it's like actually on the call. Well, you're one of those people. You were a couple years ago on that side of the conversation. Now you're on this side. So maybe you can line up what is real and what is unreal, and you can say whatever you want.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I mean, let's talk about the clients themselves, like the people behind the call. There's similarities and there's differences. In the low budget world, what I saw was all of those solopreneurs that were holding on to every cent that they could because it was like their money. And you almost had to like tiptoe around and be very gentle when you talk about money and just, say, hey, listen, I know this is expensive, I know. And you almost had to like give them a hug. At this level of the game, there's like a disconnect between the person and the dollars. And so it's not their money, it's not coming out of their pockets because it's budgeted for and it's a company. And so you can be very upfront, you can be very honest, you can just say the numbers how they need to be said, and that's it. So that's one difference that I noticed.
Good, that's a good one. What else?
Similarities, they're people too. And so one thing, and I know that like all of YouTube is going to groan at this, but
I can hear them right now if you listen very carefully, yeah.
Telling stories is immensely powerful in the sales cycle. And so it's something that you've kind of beat into me, where you need to, when you come up with an objection or they ask a question, try and source a story from your past that can be used to explain your answer. That's something that I still struggle with, trying to like get into that storytelling mode.
Okay.
But I've watched you do it, and I've watched calls that I thought were going to be pretty tough just smooth right over.
Okay, let's stay on that for a second. I think you did a great job of explaining the differences between how solopreneurs look at money and how multi-billion-dollar multinational companies look at money. Very different. Can you do the same for story? How do you see me using story as a tool in the onboarding process, as opposed to how the old version of you or somebody else on the internet might look at this? Because they're scratching their head, they don't even know what we're talking about, Ben.
Yeah.
So paint that picture for them, please.
The tactic of telling a story works on both crowds. And so unintentionally, when I was working for, $5,000 jobs, $100 jobs, I would tell stories based on things that I had done with other clients. So if somebody was worried, hey, is WordPress really the right platform to use this? Is WordPress really the right platform to use for my website? I could say, yeah, so we had a client before, they wanted to sell things, they wanted to do this. Tell them the story of that client, and it would ease that anxiety that they had. And it's the same with these Fortune 500 clients. Telling stories works both ways.
Okay, so how is the way I tell the story maybe different?
On the $1 million job that we lost, the client would ask questions and they were tough. And I thought that I had to give this like textbook answer that came straight from like Wikipedia or some tome of knowledge that in many situations I didn't have.
Right.
When really I could have addressed that by telling stories.
Earlier today, we were doing some role playing with Melinda. And I said some things, and then Mark's like, do you really talk to your clients like that? Is that really how it goes down? And I say, yes, but only somebody who's watched the channel and also watched me talk to the client can answer that, because obviously there's bias here. I might be projecting how I see myself into the way that I talk about the situation. And so I think, yes, it is. Of course, they don't bring up such petty things. They bring up different issues, so I don't respond to those exact same problems, right?
I'm lost.
These guys know what I'm talking about. If the client says you're too expensive to me,
okay,
I will give a response. And so as I'm coaching other people in a certain kind of bracket to move out, they're like, are you really saying that? I mean, are you that blunt and direct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, he is. Like yesterday,
okay,
we had a call.
Yes.
And the client was like, hey, do you know what we do? And you're just like, no. I thought it was a disaster. I thought that like, oh my God, we didn't do the research. We're going to lose this job.
Right.
It's going to be terrible. Yeah. Turns out they actually liked it, your honesty. And, that surprised me.
All right. So we can talk about that too. All right, I'm ready to dive back in now and to bring up a few things. And I'm going to challenge some of the thoughts, and then we can really get at it. I'm just going to give you all the permission in the world to push back as much as you want, because I think I want to come to a place of truth and understanding. And the way we do that is we don't just be polite to each other. And if something sort of makes sense but isn't crystal clear, I want you to dive back in and bite down on that and say, no, are you sure? Okay? Ben said this thing about concept about scarcity and abundance, that there are many low-paying clients and low-paying jobs, and there are few big-budget jobs. And because of that, Ben has to switch over into this, like, I have to change my approach. I got to sneak up on the prey a little bit more carefully. I have to use different bait. I have to mask my scent and cover my tracks. So in a way, everything that's worked for him in the past is now no longer going to work for him in the future. That's pretty fair, right? But here's my thing. As many as those $5,000 clients out there that Ben sees, I see there are just as many billion-dollar clients with six-figure logo identity jobs, believe it or not. It doesn't faze me at all.
Okay, but that's not really what I was referring to. I knew that I would never have access to those clients where I was. So like these billion-dollar clients, I knew that. So it's a total mentality shift. This is very, very new to me. And so the scarcity, like I know, like because you've told me those jobs are out there, but it's a new thing in my brain, and so that it just increases the pressure for me.
Okay. So there's what your heart knows and what your brain knows.
Right.
So your brain says, Chris said it, and I believe him so far. He's not done wrong by me. And then your heart's like, oh, no, I don't know. I don't know, man. So here's the thing. You're right. It is a 100% mentality thing. Part of it has to do with where you live, for sure. And I'm not going to deny that. There is a reason why real estate and the cost of living is so high in certain cities. Paris, London, New York, LA. It's because there's a lot of commerce and activity here, and so the cost of living goes up because more and more wealth is created.
Right.
And there's a lot of business being done here. So if you're out in the desert and you're looking for that lion, it's going to be hard to find, okay?
Right.
And you can look at that metaphor in any which way you want. But now that you're here, my mentality, and Ben seemed to have a very emotional reaction. I'm still trying to figure out why that is, but you remember on this tech client, the $1 million job? I literally went in the room with you and Greg. I said, guys, chill the F out.
Yeah.
It's just another $1 million job. You guys need to calm down because you're acting really weird right now.
Yeah.
And we cannot win this game if you act weird. You remember that?
Yeah.
That's no lie, right? I'm not exaggerating. I came in the room. I wasn't saying I was angry, but I was very straightforward and like, guys, chill F out, get your game face on. We're going to go out on the field and we're going to conquer. And if we don't, it's because we messed up some part of this. And all we have to do is just be ourselves. The minute we're not ourselves, we're already at a disadvantage. That was the thought. Now, fast forward, we did lose the job, not because we weren't ourselves, but there were a number of other reasons. You guys can watch that episode.
Right.
We go into it pretty deep. So the first thing that you guys need to just be aware of is no matter where you're at, whatever size job, there's more of them and there's more bigger ones out there. There just are, no matter what. So you don't need me to tell you that. You don't need Ben to tell you that. You don't need to live in a big city. They're just out there, and you have to accept that that's okay, because everything else is going to make you act differently. Okay? You're going to put too much pressure on yourself. You're going to feel the weight of this thing, and you're going to look at your bills. You're going to look, and you're going to act funny. And you're going to start to negotiate against yourself. You might go in and ask for $5K for the job, but then you wind up saying $3,500. When the clients are being a little weird, and you get those spider senses going off saying, I shouldn't be in this, you tell those things to shut up because you need it so much. You think you need it so much. And if you're doing what we tell you to do, if you're being of value to your client and you're actually helping to create value, my mindset is this. If they go with somebody else, it's their loss. That's it, plain and simple. If they go with somebody else, it's their loss because I create so much value for my clients. And I do it in a way that gives them great customer service, that the entire experience is pleasant.
Yeah.
And for that, I have to charge a certain amount of money.
Right.
That's my gatekeeper. Okay? Do you want to come back on that about the abundance or anything?
Yeah.
Or are you good?
Let's move forward.
Move on. Okay. You talked a little bit about a lot to prove.
Yeah.
And I have some thoughts on that.
Okay.
A long time ago, I was feeling like I needed to be as good as everybody that walked through the door. People that I hired, people who worked for me, I needed to be better at everything that they did. And when somebody came in who was a great draftsperson who could draw really well, and you know I like to draw and I draw pretty well, but not like a professional illustrator would.
Yeah.
Or somebody would come in and they knew everything there is about all the coolest typefaces. And they knew all that stuff. And I did feel like, my God, it's like, who am I? And you start to feel, for me specifically, I started to feel insecure. And I started to feel like, gosh, I'm not as good, I need to do this. And I started to try to like get myself into the conversation again in an artificial way. And I'm pretty sure everybody could see it, but at that time I could not see it. And I realized something. I just got to be me. And I'm good at certain things, and the rest I'm okay at, and I accept that. So when I worked with a killer animator, I just look at them in awe and say, you know, that's amazing. I don't know how you do what you do. Right. However, this part of the story feels disconnected to me, and it doesn't feel like we're solving the problem. We're not answering the brief. And if we do this, and you use your creativity to solve that problem, but I'm just telling you, it doesn't connect for me here. If you need to, I can pull some references, I can show you examples until we have a common language, and then we're okay. So what I heard you say was, it's true, almost everybody here has gone to a private art school, 4-year universities, graduated at the top of their class, and then we cherry pick the top of the class. Right. And we enroll them in our system, and they're amazing designers. Now, I say this, I think in all humility, some of our worst designers are better than your best designers, okay? Not you specifically, but you, okay? We hire the best people, period. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. So I don't feel like I need to compete with them, to prove anything to them. But it's easy for me to say because I went to the same program and I did the same thing. Now, if I could say anything, there's something that's very unique that you bring to the table. And that's your strength, and that's where you should stay. And you will feel 100% you versus you trying to be them. Now, let's talk about what it is that you bring to the table. You have digital experience that most of my guys do not. And you've tried many things, and you figured out what's worked and what hasn't. You're also in the space where you've onboarded clients from beginning to end. You're familiar with the entire sales cycle, and they are not. You are fearless as far as I've been able to see when it comes to going out into the world, just walking into a room and saying, my name is Ben Burns, how you doing? Right? And those are your strengths. Your strengths are in research and figuring things out, scraping the internet and finding the answer. That's not necessarily their strength. And that's what I lean on you for. So a good general needs to know who his soldiers are, who his best archers are, the best ditch diggers, and who are the best medics, and uses them for the job, and not try to be like, let me show you how to dress the wound. Let me show you how to shoot the bow and arrow or dig the ditch. That's your thing. I'm going to stand back, I'm going to watch my team and let them work. So that's how I've been able to overcome that. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, it's amazing. I don't think that I've been able to evaluate myself that well. There is, maybe not in the world of design, because they are amazing designers, and I'm like totally cool with that. But it almost feels like I was in the minor leagues or little leagues even, and I'm playing with major league players. And so it makes me feel great to hear, you know, the things that I bring to the team. But there is also that, there's still that pressure, that intimidation that I feel. And it's gotten better over the 6 months that I've been here. It's definitely like become easier, and I'm leaning a lot on the guys and asking them a ton of questions and learning from them. But it's there. It's definitely still there.
Yeah. So I think it's human nature to want to fit in. I felt this for most of my life, that I was in a community of mostly Caucasians, and I wanted to be Caucasian. I had some identity crisis for myself. I was hanging around certain people, and you want to be around the popular kids, so they dress a certain way, they listen to a certain kind of music. Then I wanted to listen to that kind of music. I wanted to have those kind of shoes and that brand of jeans. And that was part of growing up. And the thing that I've realized is that I cannot be more Caucasian than I am, which I'm not, and they can be no more Asian than they are, right? And we're all trying to be something that we're not just because we want to fit in. I just find that today, the thing that gives me a lot of confidence is just to know, this is who I am. You can accept me or you don't have to, and that's your right, but I'm not going to try to change myself to meet what your expectations are of me. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I can walk into the room and talk to the clients and be very comfortable with them is like, I'm a business owner, you're a business owner. I hope I have a solution to your problem. I hope you have a problem I can solve. If not, God bless you, you do your thing. Mm-hmm. You don't want to hire me today, that's fine. Maybe tomorrow it'll work.
Yeah.
And I can walk in there just like I'm not trying to do anything, I'm just trying to be me. Mm-hmm. And if you dig into more spirituality, into like Zen Buddhism and things of that nature, that's all they're trying to teach you is just to be okay with being you. We know that guys like Vaynerchuk and other people who are in that space, motivational space, they're going to say things like double down, triple down on who you are. Go all in on your strengths.
Know your DNA, yeah.
Right? So part of this conversation, I think, was a little surprising to me in maybe your own inability to recognize what makes you strong.
Right.
And I think that's part of the imposter syndrome. I've been doing a little bit more reading about that. And I think when I read it, the imposter syndrome is the lack of one's ability to account for our own strengths. Meryl Streep, amazing actress. She's like, I'm a pretender, I'm a hack.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of the people that we look up to, they still struggle with this thing because they don't see what the world sees. There's two ways around this. One is you get into your own head and you start to figure it out, do some self-reflection. That's a lot easier to say than to do. The other thing is to surround yourself with people you really, really trust, who have gotten to know you and who are looking out for your best interest, to ask them, what do you see in me?
Yeah.
And then don't do this, which I've done myself. Don't dismiss it as you're just being nice to me. And I've done that. You know, I used to walk around in my class and get really angry at my students, and I would say, you know, guys, I'm no smarter than you. I'm of average intelligence because I've been around people who are really smart. And what it made them feel was like, you're saying that we're really stupid then. That we must be total mental rejects. Because if you're of average intelligence and we can't figure it out, what does that make us?
Right.
But I told the story to my coach, Kier, and Kier said, you know, Chris, look, trust me. I've seen a lot of people. You are not average intelligence. You're one of the smartest guys I know. Maybe not in the book sense, and I know that, but in the ability to connect things that other people can't see, you're a really smart guy. And I was like, no, I literally was thinking in my mind, you're just being kind to me.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
And eventually, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop saying that. I need to believe it because it's hurting me. Okay? So those are two things that you can do, two actionable things. Self-reflection, ask people you trust, and the hardest part is let it sink in and believe them. If you trust them, you need to accept that. Okay? And the minute you give up trying to be things that you're not, you're going to do really well. You're going to blossom. You're going to flourish. You're going to be wholly confident and powerful in who you are. Let me talk about money. I'm going to do money story and then about, I wrote down honesty, but I'm not sure why I wrote that down. Okay. Let's talk about money. Okay. I don't like small business owners that think small. And there's a reason why they're small business owners. Now, I'm not trying to insult everybody here on purpose. There are small business owners who have big ideas, who are willing to take big chances, and they have a very different view of money. When you said that you have to use a lot of TLC, tender loving care, to help the clients through a whole onboarding process because the money is so important to them, right. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to sound super judgmental, that they're not real business people to me. Okay? Let me just say that, and the internet's going to go crazy, but I'm going to say that real business people understand it takes money to make money. It takes risks to have big wins, small risks, small wins. And so really what you have are, I think, hobbyists built around a trade or a specific skill set. Right. They're not real business owners, in my opinion. So whenever I run into one and they want to talk to me about business, I can pretty much feel like we're not going to do business together. There's no amount of TLC I'm going to give you because you want something I'm not willing to give.
Right.
Right? And when I talk to enterprising, startup to multi-million, multi-billion dollar corporations, they have a very different point of view about money. First of all, money is a means, like I told you before, it's a resource, it's a tool, and they're totally disconnected from it.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not so much that it wasn't their money, because they do act as if it's their money, but they act with a guiding principle: grow the business, move fast, take over and dominate. And to do that, you have to be very agile, you have to make decisions quickly, and there's a spirit to them that, you know what, they're willing to take a calculated risk for a calculated gain. Those are the people that I connect to, that I relate to, that I want to work with, and I think they see that in me as well. Because when we say, you know what, the website where you think all of the transactions happening, only 3% of it is happening here. The person who's stuck in their mindset, the entrepreneur, the wantrepreneur, says, no, you're not right, no, 3% can't be, it can't be. They fight you on it, or they'll nod and then they'll disagree with you later. Whereas the enterprising entrepreneur, the one who's out there, the shark, to go out and get it, 3%, my God, we've been spending too much money on this, what do we need to do? We need to launch a different campaign on this platform, and let's go. They're done.
In my experience, I have not seen at that budget level, right?
Which budget level?
Let's say lower than $5,000 engagement,
okay,
which for a lot of people is a lot of money, and it was for me back then. I have not seen risk takers at that level.
They're not at that level.
Very, very risk averse.
They're not at that level. They don't value their time is the problem.
Right.
Okay. They would rather drive across town, back and forth, researching things on the internet just to save $10. That's a person who doesn't value their own time, and that's the most valuable time they have, your own time.
I had a client ask me to teach them Photoshop and Illustrator before.
What'd you say?
I said, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how they think of it, right? So we have actually done a website before in the early dark days for $5,000. You know what they wanted to do? They wanted to rewrite the copy. They wanted to change the image. They're micromanagers. They think they know how to do everything, and that's the limiting belief that they have that will ultimately inhibit their own growth.
Right.
And I don't mean personal growth, I mean company growth. Every kind of adjective you can throw in front of that word, their growth. That's it. So I'm not suggesting that multi-billion-dollar companies are spend-free, they're reckless with their money. They're not at all. But it's instilled within the DNA of the company. We move fast, we make big changes, we're okay to make mistakes, and we'll course correct along the way. Those are the best kind of clients.
And they also miss that desperation, because it is a level of desperation where a lot of the small businesses that I had to deal with, it was like, well, I'm paying you out of my child's mouth, you know? It's taking food right out of their mouths. And so it's like, was that actually happening? Probably not. You know, I knew a lot of the revenues that was going on, and they had the money. But because it was like just them in the business, there was very little differentiation with what's my money and what's the business's money.
Yeah. There's another differentiating thing about people in a specific space, and that they feel like there's value in hard work, like physical labor means value to them.
Yeah.
An idea is worthless because it just came out of your mouth. That's like a white collar concept and not a blue collar idea, okay? So the fact that you came up with an idea is worth nothing to them. That's why they're gonna choke on this $5,000 price point, right? As opposed to, I forget who it is, the reason why Microsoft has Xbox is because somebody wrote a paper and circulated internally an email to say, we're missing a whole frontier. If we lose the gaming front, we lose the hearts of our customers. Okay, that guy was promoted then to run the head of the Xbox division because of an email he sent out. Wow. The same thing with the browser. People in big companies that are successful and innovative, they realize how valuable ideas are. And this is the debate I have a lot with the people online like you guys right now, where I say, this is how much I'm worth. They're like, no, you're not. You just said that idea. That's worth nothing. I literally asked one person, we'll mention this person's name this time. I asked them, if I gave you an idea that allowed you to charge 3 times as much money than you're currently doing today, let's say that possibility exists. I gave you a tool that you can earn 3 times as much. What's that worth to you? His response is, how long did it take you to come up with that?
Ooh.
This is the mentality.
Huh.
This is the mentality. And so for you guys that are in that space, you can ask yourself one question, maybe 2 questions. Do I like where I'm at, and do I want to keep moving in this direction where I'm at? And if you love it, keep doing it. Turn off the channel, do something else with your life, because you don't need to spend time to argue with me. Now, for the rest of you guys who are still in the room that haven't turned away from this channel or not flipping me off right now, here's what I'm going to say to you. You want a change, you want a better life, you want to be more valuable, you want to be sought after, do something different than you're doing today. I'm not saying do what I'm saying, don't do what Ben says. Do something different and try it out. Measure results given the effort. See what works. Ben, thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah.
Let's say goodbye to the good people.
Absolutely. Just so you guys know, I am alive and well. I'm working with Chris every day and loving life here. So thanks for watching. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.